Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the forests of Sheboygan, Michigan in the 1880s. This is the tragic story of Franklin Devereaux, a logger and Civil War veteran whose encounter with a bear ended in a fatal struggle. While bear attacks in Michigan are rare, Franklin's story is a sobering reminder of the dangers faced by pioneers carving a life out of the wilderness. In the late 19th century, Michigan's northern forests were a vast expanse of towering hardwoods and conifers, teeming with wildlife. These woodlands were vital to the state's booming timber industry, drawing workers like Franklin Devereaux deep into the wilderness. The region around Sheboygan was known for its rugged terrain, dense tree cover, and abundant wildlife, including white-tailed deer, black bears, foxes, and wolves. Settlers and loggers frequently encountered wild animals while harvesting timber or hunting game. While black bears are the only species of bear native to Michigan, aggressive encounters were rare unless the bears felt threatened or were guarding food. On September 4, 1883, 52-year-old Franklin Devereaux set out into the forest near Sheboygan, as he often did. He was hunting for deer while he gathered huckleberries. Despite his experience, Franklin could not have anticipated the life-or-death battle that awaited him. Born in 1842, Franklin Devereaux was a Civil War veteran who served in the 25th Michigan Infantry. After the war, he returned to Michigan to work as a hunter and trapper, but mostly hid out by himself as a hermit. By the 1880s, Franklin was an experienced woodsman, familiar with the dangers of the wilderness and the tools of survival. Now, given the time frame, it is time we address what kind of weapon Franklin was carrying with him. His muzzle-loading rifle required him to pour gunpowder down the barrel and pack it with a ramrod. Next, he placed a slugger ball on a piece of wadding made of paper and pressed it down into the barrel ahead of the gunpowder with the ramrod. The rifle is loaded at that point, but the process required the placement of a percussion cap on the nipple and cocking the weapon before pulling the trigger to fire the weapon. This process could take a well-trained woodsman about 15 to 20 seconds in total, and about the same between firing shots. As Franklin worked over a big stand of berries, he plucked them and put them in a sack he was carrying. The patch was expansive and would likely provide all the berries he could carry, but he only needed enough for the next few days. Carefully examining each berry for ripeness, Franklin slowly worked his way through different areas of the berry patch. Ahead of him, about 30 yards, a large black bear suddenly caught his eye. The bear was looking away from him as it ate berries out of the same patch. Knowing this big old bear would provide a lot of meat, a great hide, and an ample supply of delicious bear fat, Franklin carefully aimed his rifle. Just as he squeezed the trigger, Franklin's rifle roared, and a large cloud of smoke obscured the bear. Now, muzzleloaders in the 1880s had a few significant flaws compared to modern-day hunting rifles. First of all, each load of powder could vary significantly, which affected the amount of power the gun could deliver. The rifling in old-time muzzleloaders wasn't all that great either, which could leave the ball or bullet drifting unpredictably. This meant that each time Franklin fired his muzzleloader, he would have to be closer than 100 yards to the target to be accurate. As you may imagine, Franklin's shot didn't hit the bear where he was hoping. It struck the bear in the flank, which is behind the ribs, and not an immediately lethal wound. The enraged Bruin spun on its heels and dashed toward Franklin as the mountain man pulled the ramrod from his muzzleloader to prepare for another shot. A few days later, Native American Sam Flynn was making his way through the same berry patch. As he entered a small clearing, he could see the duff, all torn up and scattered. It looked like a considerable fight had occurred here, and Sam paused to look around. A few yards away, Sam saw a man sitting on a log with his head resting in his hands. The man was still, and didn't respond when Sam hollered out a greeting. Approaching the man, Sam could see the man's left side, cheek, and legs had been chewed to the bone, and one of his shoulders was out of socket. The man's eye was gouged out and his gut was torn open. Claw wounds covered his body from head to toe. As Sam touched his shoulder, the dead man tipped over and revealed the injury that had likely killed him. The dead man was Franklin, and in addition to his other wounds, his skull was crushed. Unsure of what had caused Franklin's injuries, Sam glanced over a few yards to the top of a small rise. A large black bear lay motionless on the rise, so Sam headed over to check it out. As Sam looked the bear over, he could see the wound to the bear's flank and a large wound to the bear's jaws. Putting the details together, Sam reasoned that the bear and the mountain man had a duel to the death in the berry patch, and both came out on the short end of the stick. It was clear the bear had attacked out of self-defense. It wasn't defending a cached animal carcass or cubs. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. Franklin's body was buried on the banks of the lake now bearing his name, Devereaux Lake, just outside of Sheboygan. Franklin's grave has since become a point of local interest, marking the site of one of Michigan's most infamous wildlife encounters. The state of Michigan currently hosts an estimated population of 12,000 black bears, primarily in the northern half of the state. Black bears in Michigan can vary in size from 150 pounds to 400 pounds for females, and males tipping the scale at 500 pounds on occasion. In the 1880s, Michigan's bear population was likely more widespread due to the lack of urban development and deforestation. This increased the likelihood of human-bear encounters, particularly for individuals like Franklin, who spent extended periods in remote areas. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Did Franklin's life as a hermit lend him to the added risk of bear attacks? Have you ever eaten bear meat or fat? Does living off the land sound appealing to you after hearing Franklin's tale? I think I'll rely on the grocery store for my food. I'll gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to Engadine, Michigan, a quaint unincorporated community nestled in Mackinac County within the state's Upper Peninsula. The landscape around Engadine is a testament to Michigan's glacial history, featuring diverse landforms such as end moraines, outwash plains, and kettle lakes. The area is adorned with a variety of flora, including towering white pines, sugar maples, and paper birches. Understory shrubs like hazelnut, serviceberry, and witch hazel add to the rich biodiversity. Berry enthusiasts can find wild blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries thriving in the local forests. Engadine's fauna is equally diverse, with common animals including white-tailed deer, red foxes, and a variety of bird species. Notably, the region is also home to black bears, which, while generally reclusive, can pose risks if encountered unexpectedly. On June 5, 1960, 71-year-old Arthur DeGault, a resident of Engadine, experienced a harrowing encounter with a black bear. Now, Arthur enjoyed a relaxing walk every once in a while. You see, he had a favorite patch of forest that always gave him peace each time he visited. It wasn't far from his house, and was all too tempting a respite on stressful days. This was before bear spray had been invented, and DeGault wasn't known to carry any firearms on his walks. He enjoyed walking alone, so he wasn't accompanied by a dog this evening. The mild temperature and extended daylight hours of summertime permitted him more time to enjoy his walks. As Arthur was walking, he came upon a bush rustling a short distance off the trail he was hiking. It isn't uncommon to see deer or another forest denizen, so Arthur wasn't all too concerned at the movement in the bushes. Arthur approached the bushes with a near disregard for what could be making the brush move. As soon as he got within a few yards, he could see he had made a huge mistake, one that he wasn't sure how he could remedy. Peering over the bushes, Arthur could see a big old sow black bear and 3 fuzzy dots of cubs. He knew this was not a good situation to find himself in, and immediately turned to run. He'd hoped that the sow was too busy watching her cubs to pursue him, but he was wrong, and she did. As you can imagine, within a few steps, the angry sow had caught up to Arthur. She tackled him like a linebacker and bit deep holes into his thigh muscles after taking him to the ground. The pain of a bear bite can bring an attack victim into survival mode, and Arthur was no exception to this phenomenon. Anyone witnessing the bear may have felt like the two weren't at odds, or that perhaps their motives were somehow misconstrued. But as soon as those 2-inch canines punch through your flesh with 800 pounds per square inch of force, every attack victim realizes this is no game, and there is no misunderstanding. As the pain seared through his body, DeGault reacted in an understandable response. He punched the bear in the face as hard as he could, hoping she would leave him be. Instead of running away, the big old sow stood to her hind legs and began that slow bear stagger toward her adversary. Coming toward DeGault in awkward steps, the sow swatted and snapped her jaws at him. The man knew he couldn't go toe-to-toe with a bear, so he pulled his hunting knife from its sheath on his waist. The sow continually approached DeGault, biting and clawing him as he retreated, confirming her resolve that this was a battle to the death. Once he was certain this sow was hell-bent on killing him, DeGault began plunging his hunting knife into the bear, anywhere he could strike. The sow was clearly acting out of defense of herself and her cubs, but the knife wounds imparted one after the other took their toll on the bear's aggression. After several stab wounds, the sow got the point and turned to round up her cubs. Watching the sow gather up her little ones, DeGault stared as they left, hoping they would stay gone. Now bleeding from several puncture wounds and deep gashes from the bear's claws, DeGault knew he would need to find help soon, or he may lose his life to blood loss. The wounded and bloodied man staggered a mile back to his home, hoping to make it despite his injuries. Upon entering his home, medics were notified and arrived at his house within a short time. After being taken to the hospital, the injuries to his thighs and from various gashes all over his body took 100 sutures to close. The sow was clearly acting out of defensive motives to protect her cubs and herself from a perceived threat. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, link below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, and the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. As for the sow and cubs, I could find no source indicating any action that was taken against them. Given the defensive nature of the sow's behavior, I assume that she and her cubs were left to themselves. The area around Engadine, Michigan is still known for supporting a healthy black bear population. In 2012, black bear populations were estimated at around 9,000 individuals. In 2022, populations had reportedly increased by 10% to over 10,000 individuals. Black bear populations are centered around the most favorable habitats. Hence, distribution over the 16,000 square miles of the Upper Peninsula is much more dense than the one bear per 1.6 square miles at certain locations. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. What measures can prevent the unexpected encounters between humans and bears in shared habitats? How has bear population management in Michigan evolved since the 60s to reduce human-wildlife conflicts? What are the recommended actions for individuals who find themselves close to a mother bear with cubs? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Tucked into the rugged wilderness of Michigan's Upper Peninsula lies the Porcupine Mountain Wilderness State Park, a vast expanse of dense forest, misty ridgelines, and secluded lake shores along Lake Superior's southern edge. Commonly called the Porkies, this nearly 60,000-acre preserve is one of the last large tracts of virgin hardwood forests in the Midwest. Its cool, temperate climate nurtures a thick canopy of sugar maples, eastern hemlocks, and yellow birch, interspersed with shrub layers of beaked hazelnut, hobblebush, and mountain maple. Berry-bearing plants like thimbleberries, blueberries, and bunchberries flourish here in late summer, drawing in hungry wildlife. Among the large plant-eating animals, visitors may spot white-tailed deer, beavers gnawing through aspen trunks, or moose wading into marshy inlets, though the latter are rarely seen. Predators in the region include bobcats, coyotes, and the elusive gray wolf. But one animal, the American black bear, is both an icon of the wilderness and a potential danger to the unwary camper. In 1975, the July sun had not yet crested the canopy of maple and hemlock trees in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and the woods were thick with silence, except for the occasional chirp of waking birds. Somewhere deep in the Porcupine Mountains, those wild rolling ridges along the southern shore of Lake Superior, 16-year-old Paul Cameron stirred inside his tent. He was a city kid from Dearborn, downstate, a place where the nights were filled with distant traffic and the buzz of streetlights, not coyotes, and wind through the ancient timber. This trip was meant to be a break from all that. The plan was simple: a week of rustic camping, clear lakes, quiet trails, and maybe a fish fry or two, if luck was on their side. The Porkies offered all of it, and more. He was not carrying bear spray, as it wasn't yet developed. He didn't pack a firearm, as it likely didn't seem necessary. There is no mention of a dog accompanying him. All accounts suggest Paul was alone or separated from the others at the time of the incident. As Paul slept, stars flashed across the sky until a noise from beyond the tent fabric woke him from his slumber. A heavy shuffle outside the tent. At first it might have been mistaken for a raccoon or a curious deer, but something about it didn't sit right. It was too slow, too purposeful. Then came the heavy breath and the grunt, the unmistakable sound of a bear. Paul froze. He didn't dare move. The nylon of his tent walls did little to separate him from what was there. He could hear it circling, sniffing, nudging the gear he'd left outside. The bear wasn't passing through. It was investigating. As Paul listened, the sniffing sound approached one of the staked corners of his tent. He watched the tent shake and then collapse on him. As soon as he realized the tent had given way, the sensation of movement overtook him as the bear dragged his tent. Tugging at the corner, the bear had dragged Paul and his tent several yards before the fabric began to give way. Unsure of just what the bear had in mind, Paul felt the rush of the evening air flood into the tent, and he knew he had an out. He rolled through the gaping tear and into the night, trying not to attract the bear's attention. After rolling a few times, Paul listened and hoped the bear had not noticed he'd escaped. Believing his best chance was to remain still, Paul lay motionless, facing the night sky. He listened as the rustle of his tent ceased and felt hot breath flood across his face. Somehow, in the dark, the black bear had found Paul's neck. She clamped down on his throat as he raised his hands to press her away from him. He felt her sharp teeth puncture the skin and tissues on his throat as he bellowed out a terrified scream for help. The bear dragged him a few yards before his pleas made her change her mind. Perhaps the bear thought he was a package of food or some other tantalizing morsel. Either way, his cry for help took her by surprise. She spun toward her cubs and disappeared into the night, leaving Paul wounded, bleeding, and terrified, but alive. Paul fled and contacted the rangers and authorities, who later investigated the site. They found Paul's tent and belongings scattered and partially destroyed. It wasn't long before the same sow returned, accompanied by her cubs, and began ransacking the area again. To prevent further danger to other campers, and because of the aggressive behavior displayed, officials decided to euthanize the mother bear and both of her cubs. The sow weighed approximately 125 pounds, small compared to black bears elsewhere, but not unusual for a female bear in this region. Despite the horrifying nature of the attack, Paul Cameron survived with relatively minor injuries. The bite to his throat could have easily severed major arteries or crushed his windpipe, but the bear's grip was shallow enough to avoid fatal wounds. Years later, the attack still echoes through the stories told by old-timers around campfires in the Porkies. A reminder that even small black bears can be dangerous, especially when food is involved or cubs are nearby. The forests of Michigan's Upper Peninsula are rich and wild and beautiful, but they're not without risk. The bear was later confirmed to be a mother traveling with cubs, likely in search of easy calories during the high-energy demands of summer foraging. Her behavior may have been both protective and food-driven. She may have been claiming his campsite as her food source and recognized his presence as a threat to her cubs. Speaking of Cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to photos, notes, and episodes. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. The Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park spans nearly 60,000 acres, or about 94 square miles, along the Lake Superior shoreline. Black bears are common here, with estimates suggesting a density of 1 to 2 bears per square mile in ideal habitat during peak season. That could mean upwards of 100 bears residing within or near the park boundaries at any given time. While attacks are extremely rare in Michigan, the state is home to a stable population of around 10,000 to 15,000 black bears, with a vast majority residing in the Upper Peninsula. Fatal bear attacks in Michigan are exceedingly uncommon, with fewer than a handful confirmed over the past century. Non-fatal incidents, however, often involve food-conditioned bears or sows with cubs, as was the case with Paul Cameron. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Would the attack have happened if Paul's food had been hung away from camp? Was the sow's aggression simply a defense of her cubs, or had she grown too comfortable around human campsites? Was the decision to kill the sow and her cubs ethically justified, or could non-lethal options have been considered? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the remote woods of Siren, Wisconsin. Siren, located in Burnett County, is a small rural community surrounded by dense forests and lakes. This region is part of the Western Coulees and Ridges ecological landscape, known for rolling hills, river valleys, and forests. The area's topography was shaped by glacial activity, resulting in forests, wetlands, and prairies, alongside rivers and streams, making it a prime location for outdoor activities like hiking, fishing, and hunting. The vegetation around Siren includes oak hickory and maple basswood forests, as well as wetland species such as cattails and swamp white oaks. The area's wildlife is diverse, with species like white-tailed deer, wolves, black bears, and other animals thriving in the woods. On September 6, 2024, 43-year-old Ryan Bierman was enjoying a bear hunting trip with Owen, his 12-year-old son. Ryan was an experienced outdoorsman and father of 2 living in River Falls, Wisconsin. On this particular hunting trip, he was joined by his son Owen, who had already developed a passion for hunting. With a bear hunting permit in hand, Owen hoped to harvest a bear for the first time. The two set out together, armed with a handgun and Owen's hunting rifle, excited for a father-son outing. The Biermans had set out a bear bait station, which is legal in select states, including Wisconsin, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Minnesota, Michigan, Oklahoma, Arkansas, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Maine, and Alaska, with the remaining 38 states having banned it, according to the Humane Society website. Following the required guidelines for establishing a bear bait station, they regularly stock it with bait to bring in bears and likely surveil the bears approaching the bait station with automatic game cameras. This allows hunters to determine the size and traits of bears feeding at the bait stations. The Biermans owned a family cabin just outside of Siren, where they'd set up their bait station. Observing from an elevated tree stand, the Biermans would spend the majority of the day waiting for bears to come into the bait station. About 6 p.m., Owen spotted a bear slipping through the shadows of the forest toward the bait. This was the moment he was waiting for, and he drew down on the bear's vital area with his rifle, waiting for the optimal moment to dispatch it. He slowly squeezed the trigger, and the report of the rifle roared as it kicked against his shoulder. Being an inexperienced bear hunter, Owen had mistakenly shot the bear in a place that was not immediately fatal to the animal. He peered over the rifle as the bear disappeared into the forest, hoping to watch it tumble in its death throes. Ryan and Owen were overjoyed with the thought of a successful harvest of the bear. They knew better than dashing into the forest after the bear, and waited 20 minutes before taking up the blood trail. At that point, they implemented the second phase of their plan to harvest a bear. They brought out the neighbor's dog to help them track the bear, and it picked up the blood trail quickly. As they navigated their way through the forest, the Biermans became encumbered in a thick patch of bushes. They worked their way through it, with Ryan emerging before his son into a small clearing. Just as they emerged, the neighbor's dog yelped from the brush on the far side and dashed past them in a hasty retreat. Seeing the dark shape of the bear in the brush, Ryan muttered, "There he is, Owen." Immediately after that, the angry and wounded bear emerged only 6 feet from the hunters and closed in on them with blinding speed. Now Ryan wasn't ill-prepared for a close-range encounter with the bear, as he held his sidearm in his hand as the bear closed in on him. Firing 8 shots as quickly as he could, Ryan hoped to stop the bear in its tracks, but missed each shot. The next thing Ryan was aware of, he was on his back and could only see the bear's teeth and claws. He pulled his right arm up over his head to block the bear's bite and heard the crunch of his bones as it closed its mouth on his arm. Still holding his pistol, Ryan pistol-whipped the bear about the head. Aiming for the area between the bear's ear and jaw, he hoped to knock it unconscious, if not kill it, but it was like hitting a brick wall. From Ryan's perspective, the bear was a tornado of slashing claws and snapping jaws. It bit him all over his body so quickly that the only way he knew the bear's location was by the pain from its bites and strikes. Kicking at the bear, Ryan felt its teeth punch into the flesh of his leg and then begin to rip into his abdomen. After biting and tearing at his stomach, the bear turned its attack to his head and latched onto his cheek. As the bear ripped a ribbon of flesh from his face, Ryan's eyes turned and registered a flash from the muzzle of Owen's rifle. Thinking the end was very near, Ryan suddenly felt the bear go limp as it collapsed on top of him. Now realizing the worst was over, Ryan struggled to push the bear's mass from atop himself. Blood seeped from deep gashes and bites on his arm, legs, abdomen, and face, but he was alive, and his son had saved his life. Realizing that Ryan would need immediate medical help, Owen helped his father locate his eyeglasses. He guided his father out of the woods and back to their cabin. Once the hunters arrived, neighbors converged to provide first aid while they loaded him aboard a vehicle. They immediately drove toward the Grantsburg emergency room when they ran into the ambulance part way to their goal. The medics on the ambulance put Ryan on a litter and loaded him aboard to ferry him the rest of the way to the hospital. While at the hospital, Ryan received 23 stitches to reattach the flap of skin on his cheek, as well as having his gashes and puncture wounds cleaned and sutured. From his hospital bed, Ryan called his wife on his cell phone. Upon hearing the details of the attack, she initially didn't believe what he told her, thinking it was some kind of yarn. Ryan indicates that the facts of his attack are indisputable because he has the scars to prove it. After all the medical stuff was taken care of, Ryan and Owen were allowed to claim the bear's carcass. They're considering how they're going to have it mounted as a keepsake to commemorate their bear hunt and the amazing story behind it. Ryan indicates that he's already planning their next bear hunt, and nothing will keep him from doing what he enjoys with his son. Regarding the bear's motives for its attack, it was defending itself from the hunters. Although it was approaching a food source, it didn't attack Ryan out of defense of its food. There is no source indicating that cubs were present at any point in the confrontation. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. The state of Wisconsin is reportedly home to 24,000 black bears, over its 65,000 square miles. This is a black bear density of 1 black bear for every 2.7 square miles, including urban areas. From 2013 to 2022, there were 9 recorded bear attacks in the state. There has never been a fatal bear attack in the state of Wisconsin. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Should hunters carry more powerful firearms when they're hunting or tracking dangerous game? What role does calmness under pressure play in life or death situations, like Owen's rescue of his father? How can hunting practices be improved to reduce the chances of dangerous encounters like this one? This incredible story of survival reminds us of the importance of preparation and quick thinking in the wilderness. Thanks to Owen's bravery and calm response, both he and his father walked away from what could have been a fatal encounter. I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. The early afternoon sun had peaked in the Wisconsin sky, and the temperatures were creeping up. July was always the hottest and driest month here, and this one was on target. 69-year-old Karen Fry was enjoying the fresh air while doing some cleanup in her backyard. The thick woods west of town had always pressed in close to her home and allowed a female bear and her cub easy access to Karen's yard. She was leery about going outside, given how much of a problem the mama bear had been giving her the last few weeks. The comfort and privacy of her yard was too inviting, and Karen hadn't seen the bear today. As she strode across the lawn, she caught some movement in the brush and was alarmed to see the sow and her cub emerge only a few yards away. Karen started to talk calmly to the bear as she slowly walked backward, but the sow was clearly more angry than Karen had ever seen her. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. July 12, 2025 began like most summer Saturdays in rural Barron County, Wisconsin. Sunshine dappled the lawns and porches near Comstock, and Karen stepped outside her cozy home around 2 p.m. She had good reason to be worried. A sow black bear and her cub had been unwelcome visitors to Karen's yard several times, and the old girl wasn't too happy to see her human counterpart. With each of several meetings, the bear's attitude toward Karen ratcheted up in intensity, and with it, Karen's anxiety about how to deal with the bears. As Karen's mind refocused on her tasks, she momentarily took her eyes off the tree line surrounding her property. Her family knew about her problem with the mama bear, and she had a degree of peace knowing that they may stop by to check in on her. As she turned her back to the woodline, the sow and her cub emerged from the brush less than 25 yards away. Before Karen could let out a scream, the angry bear had covered the ground in only a few bounds. As the sow clawed at her and snapped her jaws at Karen, the woman recognized the bear as the same one that had been roaming on and near her property. This bear was slowly stalking her on previous occasions and chuffed at Karen from the brush on several others. Most mama bears would take the presence of a human as a sign to find a new place to raise her cub, but this one was a little different than most. Karen's dog, whom we'll call Jet, was barking and running around, but the sow was focused on Karen. With a series of quick bites and swipes from her paws, the sow's attack was stopped as she searched the brush for her cub. Karen knew this break in the violence might be her only chance to escape. She rolled to her feet and limped into her home. Now within the safety of her house, she dialed 911 and pleaded for immediate help. Not only did paramedics respond to her calls, police pulled into the driveway, armed with long rifles, meant for taking down the bear. Now there is a certain order in which things tend to happen. Paramedics can't respond to a location with any confidence while a dangerous animal prowls the area, so the police gathered information about the bear while the medics treated Karen. After being informed the bear was still in the backyard and Karen's dog was running around as well, the police officer strode confidently across the side yard. The video from the officer's chest cam tells the story and is linked to in our Patreon account below for your review. The officer worked his way around the side yard before locating the bear, approximately 35 yards away near the woodline. He raised his rifle and ripped off 3 shots in rapid succession. The bear responded to the impact of at least one of the rounds by spinning toward the woods and disappearing into the brush. Following the blood trail, the officer soon heard some twigs breaking from the brush to his right. He glanced up and saw a yearling cub clinging to a tree, now separated from his mother and lost. After following the bear's blood trail for several yards into the brush, the police officer turned his attention back to Karen and the paramedics. As he walked toward the front yard, he met game wardens from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Relaying all information he could to them, the officer left, allowing the wardens to put a plan in place to trap the sow and her cub. The wardens didn't like the idea of a wounded mama bear being so close to town. They requested and received tracking hounds, which were on the site in a matter of minutes. As the hounds made their way through the forest, the wardens were taking possession of culvert traps and snare traps. They positioned several traps around the property, along promising paths and shadowy shelters. A posse of armed game wardens were assigned to comb the woods and instructed to shoot the sow on sight. One of the snare traps was successful in snaring a large male black bear, but the big old boy was released after the short-lived case of mistaken identity, while the sow and her cub remained elusively hidden in the forest. After a series of hospital transfers, Karen was eventually admitted to Regents Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. Her condition was stabilized, and her severe lacerations and bruising were treated. The bear's claws and teeth did severe damage to her flesh, but her mind will struggle for much longer and have scars more painful. Very determined to find the sow, game wardens were concerned that she may have had rabies. They formulated a plan to capture her in the snare traps and humanely euthanize her for testing and analysis. There was no way they could see the sow would be allowed to return to the wild, and removal was the only option after Karen's attack. The cub, on the other hand, was still salvageable. When they catch it, they plan to sedate the bear cub and relocate it to a more remote area where it will have a chance to thrive and develop its own territory. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, notes, and pictures. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. Karen will survive, but there was no information provided indicating what became of her dog. The sow likely succumbed to her wounds in the forest, but if she lives and is caught, she'll be euthanized, per department guidelines. Wisconsin is home to over 24,000 black bears, over its 65,498 square miles. This is a bear density of 1 black bear per 2.7 square miles, including urban areas, farms, and other areas not likely to host any bears. This population density is easily carried by the resources in the forests in the area, but with rural communities and acreages located in prime bear habitat, incidents like Karen's are not likely to stop. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Given we don't know if Karen had reported the presence of the sow and her cub near her home, would involving the authorities have prevented this attack? The information for this episode did not state that Karen owned or carried bear spray or a firearm. Would either deterrent have helped Karen avoid being attacked? Do you think the repeated and persistent appearance of the sow on Karen's property was a warning from the bear? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We've slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.